Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Susannah Freeman, licensed acupuncturist. In these conversations, we blend the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine with the innovations of modern functional medicine, offering practical insights and tools for a life of wellness. Our vision is to contribute to a healthier world by providing accessible knowledge, tools, and daily practices. If you're ready to adopt new health habits and do things differently, then listen and learn here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm Susannah Freeman, and your clinic director at Great Turning Healing Center and Guide to Wellness. We have a very special guest here today, our dear friend and colleague, Bobby Ibarra. He is a structural integration practitioner. This includes structural integration, craniosacral therapy, and source point therapy. He's also a husband and father and a recent dad to a brand new pup. He is a lover of life, dear friend, and we love working together with Bobby in the clinic. So, Bobby, what's on your mind today? Tell us about why you're here.
Well, we're here to talk about creating change the simple way and really just embodying that change or empowering ourselves to feel that change within ourselves.
Cool. Tell me more.
What I do with people when they come to see me is really just help them feel their body more and help them find those areas that they're holding patterns of tension so that when they lose those patterns of tension, they're able to move in a more fluid, comfortable, and just joyful way.
How does that relate to creating change in a simple way? How does that relate to being more joyful in life?
When we're talking about change, we typically have patterns that we've become accustomed to. And we play those patterns out day in and day out. And when people come in to see me in my office, what we're getting to the bottom of is what these patterns are. So when I'm working with someone, I'm really just getting my hands on their physical body. But there's just a wild cyclical effect of a change in our bodies usually ends up changing something in our emotional life, in our psychological life. Some people might even say in our energetic world.
Right.
So,
and I might add, Bobby, your body work is some of my favorite ever. Your hands and your touch are so safe and comfortable and supportive that I know exactly what you're talking about, and I experience when I'm on the receiving end with you of feeling that possibility of change, that I can move my body differently. And you and I both, because we're both athletes and love to spend time outside moving our bodies, you and I both inherently know that when we're stronger, more agile, when we feel better in our bodies, that does spill over into the rest of our lives. I know that. It's a funny thing to talk about because I'm not sure everybody really necessarily knows that and feels that. So I want to chat about that a little bit here today for people who that might not be their ingrained habit.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Right? So if you're somebody who spends a lot of time sitting at a desk and driving in a car, maybe on your phone, on your computer, getting outside and moving your body might not be, like you and I, Bobby, the most comfortable thing. So I want to keep that in mind as we keep talking. No matter who you are, where you are, let's talk about how we can develop new patterns and create change as simply as possible. And this idea of committing to living a healthier life, let's talk a little bit more about that, okay?
Yeah. So when it comes to our health, I think that it's really important to think about it in a sense of holism. You know, when we're not doing well emotionally, when we are bottling things up or we're just really overcome by what's going on with us, it's important to realize that there's definitely a connection to how much we're discharging, you know.
Discharging, what do you mean by that?
Stress and energy. You know, if we're bottling things up, it's very, very common that we're not moving. Like we're just kind of we're stagnating, or where things are just sitting.
And then it might, I know in a recent episode last June, check out the Meditation and Awareness podcast last June with Bobby Ibarra on our podcast. You talked about flipping your lid.
Yeah.
And had this whole conversation about flipping your lid. What I notice is that if we're tense in our bodies, it's going to bottle up inside, like you were just saying. And then at some point, your body can't contain that tension and that stress anymore. And then you, quote unquote, flip the lid.
Yeah.
And it may not go well in your life, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's usually a very inappropriate thing to flip your lid.
So listen to the podcast from last June on meditation and awareness. But basically, he's talking about the brain and the different brain centers and how to stay in a state of well-being as much as possible, and how to notice when you're moving out of that state of well-being into reactivity. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I want to return to this concept of how do we get to a happier, well-balanced, and functionally strong body that helps us live better. And because we're sitting here right now in mid-January, we're about 3 weeks out from New Year's Eve. You may be listening to this at a different time in the year, but it's really okay. We're talking about that natural excitement that happens when we set a new goal, and culturally, a lot of us do that at year end as we disembark from the previous year and embark into a new year. It's a really good time to lay down anything that's no longer useful and pull into your life things that you really want. And so here we are. We've done that process, and we're 3 weeks out. And if you're like many people, you set goals. And if you're like many, you might have been excited at first, and now you might be feeling this mundane tedium of reaching these goals. The energy is faded. It's uncomfortable, frankly. And you might be thinking, oh, how am I ever going to do this? Maybe I should just stop now because that didn't work. So I want to talk about that with you, Bobby, because this is something that we see with our clients a lot. And this is something that you and I are really good at helping people through. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I want you to think about, all of you right now, 3 stages of getting to a new health goal. And we're going to add to that how to develop new patterns and keep them simple. So all of you right now, I'd like you to think of a goal. And for this example, try to make it a physical goal, since physical health is the topic of this particular conversation we're having with Bobby. And really, though, it can be anything. So think about that goal. Maybe it's something that you already decided. And just to get you started, I'll tell you what my goal is, which is, my goal is to have a stronger body by the end of the year, and to continue my daily meditation, which luckily is something I'm really good at already, and then to strength train most days, because I want to build more muscle. I want to be stronger. And the other thing that I want you to think about as you think about your goal is, what are you committed to this year? And to keep in mind that you may be committed to things that don't match your goals. So I want you to be willing to adjust. Let's say I was committed to eating donuts at 8 o'clock at night instead of doing a few burpees. And so maybe that's not such a hot idea, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I need to drop that commitment and make a commitment to laying down on the living room floor and doing a little stretching and a little breathing and a little relaxation and have a glass of water. And then maybe, maybe I'll sleep better and have more energy for strength training the next day. So P.S. It's going well so far.
Great.
And sometimes it feels a little mundane. So Bobby, if you have a goal you want to share, feel free. But I think really the idea here is people have their own goal in their mind. I would love to hear, how do you get through that mundane? So you're 3 weeks out from New Year's Eve.
you had a goal, you were really excited, right? It's like, I got this, right? And people are talking about it. Now it's like, all right, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. Some days, frankly, it's a little uncomfortable,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
definitely. And so my experience of this is that there is going to be an uncomfortable period.
Mm.
And I think that it's important to have that uncomfortable period because you get to learn about yourself and you get to learn what it's like to get through that discomfort.
Mm.
So this is related to that first podcast that we did, but in my experience, the more that we actually are sitting with how something is uncomfortable and how it might be unpleasant and how we don't want to do it, but we still like visualize the end goal
Mm.
and see why it's so worth it to get this get through this period, this little plateau.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we experience growth.
How do you do that in your life?
One of my goals this year has been to get to bed at a more reasonable time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got 3 little kids at home, and at the end of the day, my wife and I spend a little bit of time together.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been in the habit of staying up late so that I have some time to myself at the end of the day.
Uh-huh.
And so
Which is important.
it's definitely important, but I've found myself being more and more committed to just like telling my wife, all right,
Mm-hmm.
it's 9:30. I'm sorry, but I have to go do my own thing for a little bit as I wind my day down.
So balancing your commitment to your own health and balancing your commitment to your relationship.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, folks, he has a fabulous relationship that I can see. So, and commitment to your sleep, which then spills over, like I was saying, into the next day with your ability to be strong and be present for your clinic, for your clients, and for your wife and for your kids.
Yeah. And I mean, and for myself.
Yes.
I mean, a
right.
huge part of my happiness is that I make time almost every day to go do something active outside.
Mm-hmm. You do. Super fun to watch you go out and skateboard and snowboard in the middle of the day and come back all happy. So, okay, so that's your commitment, and you're comfortable with that discomfort. Sounds funny, but right? You train for the mundane somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow you do that.
Well, a part of my life for, I'm guessing, the last 4 years has been consistent meditation.
Mm.
And in that meditation, I always bring it back to the sensations in my body. I'm just constantly noticing what I'm noticing.
Awesome.
And sometimes it's very clear, like, oh, this weird feeling in my gut is about this awkward conversation that I'm going to have later in the day. Or, oh man, I think my neck is all jacked up because I'm so frustrated about X, Y, or Z.
Okay, awesome. So nice segue into where we're headed next, which is noticing sensations in the body. And once again, we're swinging back into awareness and meditation, which is so good. So you and I both meditate daily, and such an important touch point to understand sensation in the body. So let's spend a little more time chatting about that.
Yeah.
Before we get there, though, I just want to make sure we really have people understand this concept of the 3 stages of reaching your goal. So there's the identifying what it is that you want and applying a commitment to that goal, right? So what am I committed to, and making sure there's some congruence there with what are you committed to and what is your goal. So I'm just reviewing here. And then, so you think about a goal, and that will generally get you excited when you make some steps towards that goal. It's pretty exciting. It releases all this really cool brain chemicals and more energy and some dopamine to get it all done. And then you start doing it, and the discomfort kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we need to really be gentle with ourselves and allow that sensation to arise of discomfort, and then be willing to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not forever, folks.
And if there's anything that I know about sensations, is that they change.
And this little plug for Bobby and for myself as well as an acupuncturist and in my work in functional medicine and herbal medicine, this is something we're really good at, is supporting people through that mundane section, that discomfort, and providing some ease, but also providing some confidence and ability and capacity to handle that discomfort, knowing it's not going to break you, right?
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it feels like it might, it's not actually going to break you. And then the confidence that comes after that is really cool. So what you said, I would agree with, is that as we feel that discomfort and we get through that discomfort, so it does take a little bit of grit. It
Totally.
I'm just thinking about, there was this day a few weeks ago before we had this ridiculous cold snap. I was out cross country skiing in the mountains, and I had to work on my taxes before I could leave the house. And I just made myself just sit and sit and sit and sit longer than I wanted to get these deadlines done for my accountant, and I did it. And what kept me going was knowing that I was going to get outside in the sunshine. And I went out into the mountains and I went skiing, and the sky was blue and the mountains were white and the trees were green, and it was so pretty. And you might not have thought of this as fun, but like, I skied uphill for over an hour out of breath, and I had a ball, and it was windy and cold, and I had such a good time, and it just made me so happy. And that was a small little win, a small little celebration of that mundane that I had pushed myself through. And I didn't mind the discomfort. And it allowed me just that small little, just one step more towards automatic habit of, this is what I do to build my strength, and this makes me happy. Yeah. And I knew it. And that was what was key, was just understanding, being more aware of the happiness that gave me. And that was the key.
Yeah.
That, to me, celebrating those small little gains, those small little wins along the way, gets me through the discomfort.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, I think that is just to bring it back to my practice a little bit.
Yeah.
I work with people in a series of 10 sessions. And one of the main reasons that I see it taking a series of sessions to get done what we need to is because a little win sticks a lot better than a huge big change. So yeah, I think that's definitely, you have to celebrate those little wins. You have to notice when you've done something worth applauding.
Yeah, celebrating each time. And also, like, I know you like to talk about with people in your 10 series, and I do the same. I work with people with consistency, is that any one treatment might not hold, as well as when you have these small anchors, these small investments to your overall goal, your overall commitment, and they start to add up. And there might be some discomfort along the way, and they might not hold their progress. They might be like, oh yeah, I felt better for a day, and then it all slid back. And so that's important to note. It's like, okay, you're not holding your treatment, right? You're not holding your progress. What do we need to do to anchor it further? Right?
Yeah.
So that nuance with what's working and what's not. Do we need to deepen our commitment to this process? Is there some other variable we haven't found? Right? And this can get pretty frustrating when somebody is really sick or in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's not better yet.
Yeah. I think that it really just boils down to, our bodies are so complex that it's very rare that it's just one thing that is keeping us out of pattern or keeping us out of alignment. So touching on that one thing that is the loudest, it can be so satisfying in the moment, but 2 or 3 days later, people are often back in a similar situation. So working in the format or in the paradigm of a series makes so much sense, because you're working with the compensation patterns, let's call them patterns of dysfunction around.
Sure. That in the non-body workers world, what that means is maybe a compensation pattern would be, if you sit a lot, your hip flexor muscles get shortened and tight, and your low back muscles might get lengthened and weak, and then you get low back pain. Is that an example of a compensation pattern?
Absolutely.
You're compensating for too many hours of sitting, and then you try to stand up and go for a run or go for a hike or do something, and it hurts.
Yeah.
Right?
And I guess a different way to think about it is that often when we have an injury, we start to move away from that injury.
Right.
We start to change the position of our body so that we don't have to sit in that discomfort, and we just start to hold ourselves out of alignment or away from the pain.
And so what you're teaching people then is how to disrupt that old pattern and introduce the new pattern.
Yes.
Which is also what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yes. And you might actually be doing it with herbs and vitamins. You might be doing it with a thought pattern. You might be doing it with a treatment with Bobby. You might be doing it with certain exercises, because I know you give people homework and you help them after their sessions. I'll watch you do this with people. You can say, okay, now you're going to walk like this. Do you notice that? Like, can you talk that through? This is how you help people reinforce the new pattern.
Definitely. While it is so nice and so relieving to have an old pattern released, there's something that's just been held tight. It's been super tense for God knows how long, and we just let it go. But I think that where the real juice is in the work that I do is helping people make meaning of what we did on the table.
Nice.
So, yes, there might have been something right above your glute that has just been held tight for so long, and we just smoothed it out. But if you get off the table and you keep on walking the way that you'd been walking while you were in that pattern, the chances of that change holding are very low. I think that it's really important to just really outline and make meaning of what we've done, and just give people really practical, really easy and simple, quote unquote, homework. Like,
yeah.
What are small movement cues that you can come back to?
Okay. So that's, again, that's the adding the small gains, the small wins into the mundane.
Yeah, and just really keeping change simple.
Yes.
Like it's really, really hard to go through a whole exercise regimen and stay excited about it. But if it's one thing that you get to do, it's a little shift. It feels good and it's exciting. I think that sticks with people.
You're reminding me of way back when I was a guide in the mountains, and I had a back injury that was making it very, very painful for me to do my job and carry a backpack. And I went to this physical therapist, and I was like, I don't have time, because I worked literally from sunrise to sunset, like, because I was with people out in the wilderness. And I said, I don't have time to lay down on a mat in the woods and do your exercises. So you're going to have to give it to me somehow that I do in the middle of my day. He's like, okay. And so he taught me how to walk again. Now that sounds like, makes me have compassion for people who literally have had to learn how to walk again if they've had a stroke or a spinal cord injury. Bless our hearts. It sounds really difficult. But he gave me the sort of those simple little clues on this is how you do it. And I had a simple little exercise that I did every step I took on the trail, every step up over on a rock, every step down off a log. Every moment I was doing this one little thing in my body, and it worked.
That is so cool.
I changed my gait.
Yeah.
And I did exactly what you were talking about, of just undoing those old compensation patterns for the injury and put in new ones. And I did it for 60 miles at a time. It was super fun. What I learned from that was that I am capable of change. And that's the beauty of what we do, and what we want to convey to all of you is that you are capable of change. The simpler you keep it, the more direct, and the more you build those wins in. And just sounds silly, but pat yourself on the back every day. Yeah,
no, I think that this comes back to when we first started this conversation. We were talking a lot about the hormones behind the sensations.
Yes.
And so I think that without patting ourselves on the back, we don't get that warm and fuzzy sensation of like, sweet, success.
Right. So warm and fuzzy and a hug is oxytocin.
Uh-huh.
The get up and go, all right, it's a new day. We're going to get up and do this again. That's dopamine.
Mm.
The well-being and the satisfaction that we get is more serotonin. The relaxation after a big hard workout or a big push, and when we finally relax and drop, it's GABA that helps us relax.
Mm.
These are all really important neurotransmitters and hormones that help offset that stress response in the cortisol and the norepinephrine and the epinephrine.
Mm-hmm.
So we need all of them. You need to be able to move into fight or flight. You do. When you're out there snowboarding, I've seen you out there, you're using some cortisol, and it's appropriate.
Yeah.
And then you stop and you rest and you give those adrenal glands a little break and you rest.
I love that you brought all of this up because I think that initially we were talking about why do I commit to a healthy life?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, a healthy life is a well-rounded life where I'm working, I'm with my family, I'm staying active, and all of those things give me this spectrum of different hormones. I'm committed to staying active and I'm committed to staying healthy because I feel like I'm a superhuman when I'm able to just like get a hit of oxytocin. There's my youngest son just being so sweet. Like, that's an awesome feeling. I'm going to go head off to work and do my best.
Keeping it simple, folks. Just a little bit on the vagus nerve and how does that play into transmitting those signals from the brain into the body. The vagus nerve is how we communicate those impulses into sensation in the body. That sense of like, if you've ever felt butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous, that's the vagus nerve helping you experience that sensation. You've got all these chemicals circulating through the body, circulating through the brain. You've got these nerves that are directing signals between the brain and the limbic system and our emotional world down into the body, and then you're feeling sensation. And our job as humans is to somehow put that all together and create that balance and pull out that fight or flight when you need it, and then lay it down and get back to those states of well-being, and that balance that you spoke about is so, so important. And it sounds silly, but it's like if we do that well, we get happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's really quite simple, folks. It's kind of fun that way. Happiness is not complicated. It's removing obstacles. Because we have this innate joy and happiness and well-being. If we remove the obstacles to that, it just naturally, organically comes up. So that's how I like to keep it simple. And, I gotta say, sometimes I feel like the mundane is simple. When I just make things automatic and like ordinary, I don't have to think about them anymore. I just do it. And lo and behold, I feel better later.
The more that we are able to just notice something as like, oh, that's mundane, and put a system to it, that makes it what you're saying. Like it makes it easier to deal with, to bear.
Easier to bear, that sound mundane and tedious and bear, those are all negative sounding words, but if we can find a way to reframe it and make it like, yeah, this is just ordinary, that I'm doing this and I'm making it automatic so that I have more juice left over for the things that I really want to do. And as long as you continue to do that every single day, you do the mundane and you just like, yep, okay, this is what we're doing. And then you give yourself that shot of dopamine and serotonin and pride. And that's going to help you do it again the next day. It sounds complicated at times when we're sick and injured and unhappy, but actually, if you keep it simple, it's very, very manageable and doable.
Yeah.
So that's how we spend our days, Bobby and I.
Sounds like a pretty sweet life.
Yep, and helping other people get there in their own ways in their own lives. And that's what makes us happy, in part, is to be able to serve others in doing that.
Yeah.
Bobby, how do people reach you? And is there anything you would like to share with people?
The best way to reach me is if you just Google my name, Bobby Ibarra. Usually Bobby Ibarra Structural Integration pops up. There's a phone number there. You can call me, text me, leave a voicemail. I'll get back to you in a day. And on my website, there's a contact form.
Awesome.
As far as anything that I'd like people to know about my practice is that, yeah, we're holding a little bit in our systems. And the more that we can bring awareness to whatever that is, the easier that it is to let it go. And the less that we're holding on to, the easier it is to move through life in a fluid, comfortable way.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Bobby. And Bobby's contact information is on the show notes as well, if you didn't catch that. Same with ours, Susannah Freeman. You can always Google our clinic. It's greatturninghealing.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Phone number at the clinic is 406-599-0088. That's it for now. Would love to send you off with one more little message in addition to Bobby's. As you step back into your routine and you begin again those small but significant mundane tasks, you will remember this conversation. Every day you're becoming more capable, more present, building energy and motivation in small ways, celebrating the small wins and becoming more congruent with your commitments. This daily deposit into your motivation bank is moving you forward, and you're finding new and simple ways each day to get better. Have a great day, everyone. See you next time.